Good afternoon and welcome to the FX Daily Wrap-Up from ForexAnalytix. And Chairman Powell just wrapped up his comments and a bit of an interview questions. We did see the dollar going and pop up because Bullard had an interview on Bloomberg, I believe it was. But anyway, he had mentioned he did not see, I thought a 50 basis point cut was likely, and that certainly dropped the euro and shot the dollar right on up. We're looking for the euro technically, or not technically, well, technically, yes, to look to run out of gas in this area. I'd made comments. I thought you'd see the dollar grab a bid going into the G20, and I believe that's still going to be the case. We'd come into this zone here. We discussed it on the European crossover webinar. If you are a member with ForexAnalytix, as I mentioned before, this webinar takes place where we get our analysis and set up the levels for the day at 4 a.m. Eastern time, but it's recorded and made available about an hour and a half before the New York Open. But we had talked about this zone area here, and we had our resistance actually a little bit higher up in here. I think we had that have to pull back in here. Let's see, it's still at the 1427 for a little bit of an overshoot, but they did stop in here, and then I thought possibly if we came in with a little bit of dovish talk, we could spike up a little bit. But with Bullard coming out of the gate with the no dice on the 50 basis points, so that's how the market anticipated, or not anticipated, but reacted to, then certainly we saw the pull down here in the euro. And obviously the pop up here in the cash dollar index, which we had our cash dollar index bias chart resistance at 96.34. The high was what, 96.37. So once again, like I said, if you remember with ForexAnalytix, you're able to get these levels that we have here. You're just about made down to that 1343 key level. I thought we may overshoot it possibly to 1337. But these are available. Same thing. Another thing we've been talking about, I did mention it yesterday, was on the gold market for the XAU. Talked about a level, mentioned it several times in the chat room, of 1438. The high today was 1439.20 on the gold market on the XAU, via the XAU, and we've since pulled back. After Bullard made his comments, the euro was relatively quiet. The only thing that got the euro to pop up was when Trump came out and made his comments that he thinks the dollar ought to be weaker, so he shot up. But this was an excellent area right in here for the euro. And as I mentioned in the room, I think that we can still work lower here in the euro. I think we hung around this area for so long here. I was thinking we may be able to pop up and then, from there let the market ease back. But like I said, Bullard came in and basically took the air out of the balloon. We also saw a jump up here in the dollar CAD. We're looking potentially for a move down here to 31.36 here on the dollar CAD. I'm looking here on the 30-minute. I use my exponential moving averages here on the 30-minute. I have them placed whether it's a 2-hour or daily, but I use them against the 30-minute. Obviously, you can see the euro had been on the sell since right here at 14 as we move lower, and it's remained and continued to stay on the sell, at least from a momentum standpoint. Certainly the dollar, that's another thing here that we've been looking here on the cash dollar index. We talked about that since yesterday. We're looking for 95.90. The market stopped at 95.85, but you can see the significance of 95.90. And with the cash dollar index, we had a key fib there also at 95.98, which was the 23% of the entire move from the lows of 88.25 to 98.37. So 95.98, 23%. We knew that was going to be key. Yesterday they were there, but the market, like I said, it was so inundated with bearishness that it didn't make that much of a difference, too much. But I knew they were going to find a little bit of covering there. And then we had the 95.90. Thought the euro might be able to pop up and even further than the 14.13, and then from there start to ease back. But like I said, Bullard took the air out of the balloon. I do think eventually we'll get down to 95.65 with confluences with the 161% of this range. But for now, a decent area for the dollar to pair back from these lower levels. I think that we can catch a bit of a bid as we go into the G20. The euro is still holding up, but once again, I think that we could still ease back here. We did get that quick flush. I think the euro's a buy, but I would like it much better towards 1337 and 1326 and 1312. We'll see what he can do. Maybe we push higher, but I'm not so sure about it. The only thing advantage was that they were able to, anyone that was short had the opportunity to get out with a little bit of gains or flat, or those that were short up in here get out with some, rather decent gains. As far as the dollar peso, it's still languishing here at this 19.23.6. We'll go and take a look at that here. We've discussed that. That's been a big level for the last 2 weeks and has remained our bias chart resistance for quite a few days since last week. And you can see right here, this market has been bracketed between 18.92 and 19.23.6. Today we moved, I think we had a bias chart, we moved it up a little bit higher up in here, but you can see 19.23.6. Today I think we had 19.08 for our bias chart support, but this 19.23.6 is very key. Another key level, key market right here was the dollar yen that finally, we actually made it down here to our bias chart resistance, our bias chart support that we've been looking for some time as an overall, which was 676. I think we came down to 678. One moment. I haven't done anything in the yen in a long time. I know Amanda has been with the yen pairs. I think she's also with the dollar yen, but also with several pairs against the yen. But here's that target I've been looking for, 676. We missed it by, I think, a pip and a half or 2 pips. We saw a nice little rally back here on the dollar yen. Also with the cable, boy, what cable just turned around and rolled back down. Several people have been looking at the cable thinking, wow, this thing has been holding up very well despite all the negative news from you would expect or was expected to be with Boris Johnson. But he certainly pushed higher, but boy, we quickly slid and gave up those gains rather quickly here with the cable. So certainly back under pressure, having lost his key 27.34, which has been important. And so here we are sliding right back below it after we were able to close above that and look like potentially we could move higher. We're going to move into the cross rates. And the sterling versus the AUD, it certainly was making the challenge up into this area here. See that clearly. Right here, this 84.14, and really trying to push for all it's worth. But we've since gone and paired back, and boy, paired back we certainly have here, and you can see that edging back. But we even went right through the bias chart support level, just pushing lower, really making that trek, trying to go on and move as low, hitting new depths down here, just pushing further lower here on that. The only other thing that was of note here was in the Euro New Zealand. We have support here at 70.99. Our bias chart support, we're about 5 pips below it right now, but certainly we've gone and rolled here as the Kiwi has actually strengthened. Although the Euro's been strong, certainly the Kiwi has certainly outperformed, and we're down, like I said, our bias chart support comes in at 70.99. Not really a whole lot. I can see here, same thing here with on the Aussie yen. Let's take a look here. We've kind of made a move here. We're kind of stuck in neutral here for the most part. We have our resistance here. Bias chart resistance comes in at 74.80 and down here making this 74.34. But we're kind of sitting here just stuck in neutral for right now with the Aussie yen. Not really a whole lot of movement. Used to be, a notable pair to trade with, use it as a proxy for the equities, but has been relatively quiet. The only other thing of note here is going to be on the euro yen. We'll take a look at that here on the daily, get a little bit of a context on that. And potentially we could see a move here to 22.64, but you can see right now, we've basically just engulfed the previous day's body now. So it's going to be interesting to see where this market does go on and close. Obviously, we've seen the euro ease back a bit, and the yen itself. So we've seen this area here now is certainly a bearish engulfing bar. We'll see how much further. Obviously, we've got a little bit of a support level coming in at 2166, about 20 pips off of that, but we'll see how, if we do engulf this body, it's going to want to push a little bit lower and potentially come down here right to a level which would be not that much lower, 2159 here on the euro yen. So we're going to move back in to the main screen. There we go. So as I mentioned here, I don't really see a whole lot happening with the euro at this point. I would expect for this probably to pare back because my thoughts is that as bearish as I'd been with the dollar, I had certainly expected the dollar then to go on and find some short-term support, which was at this 95.90, 95.98. And we've found that short-term support here with the dollar. Really the key thing for me was, and I think you have to be careful because I think the dollar still has much further to go, but I think that the market would be bid going into the G20 and also the euro stretch. Now, once again, be careful with the dollar because I still think that the dollar still has lower to go, but in the meantime, I think it is due for a bit of a respite. Also, with Buller's comments stating no 50 basis point cut, and although when you listen to Powell, it certainly looks like a 25 basis point cut is certainly going to be there. He's talked about expanding, the environment that we do have, the economic environment, and he's raised a lot of points and said, hey, employment's even reaching areas that we have not been reached in a very, very, very long time, in decades actually. So his ideas about expanding what the economy is already doing. So he has a cover of veil cover from which he could go on and provide that 25 basis point cut and still look rosy. And but once again, like I said, certainly doesn't look like the 50 basis point cut would be in the cards unless things worsen. Now, if things worsen with the trade row with China, he did say a greater emphasis has been placed on those factors that have materialized over the last few weeks. He mentioned a completely different environment from just 8 weeks ago. Things have changed quite a bit. So if we see things continue to worsen with China, then certainly the door would be open for potentially a 50 basis point cut. But for now, it's kind of like a bit of a steady as she goes, 25 basis point. I think, to me, like I said, I think the euro is just basically marking time for now. Could we pop up? I guess anything's possible, but I think it would be a selling opportunity. I can see the point where you'd want to buy it. And to me, I've been saying since last week, gun to head, I'd rather be a buyer of the euro. But I wouldn't want to be a buyer here at this area. Almost a 43 wasn't bad, but I would have liked to dip down into the 30s and potentially really into the 20s, where I think then you could argue the point, hey, it's a good value. One of the things that we talked about in the analysis going into the week was the risk reward at this valuation has rather diminished. So you end up buying here at the 1390s, 1380s, and look what you can risk as opposed to what you can gain. And certainly doesn't make for a very good trade-off, to say the very least. So that's my take there with this. We're about ready to go on and wrap it up, as I mentioned here, with the dollar. We'll see how this goes and plays out. But I think my take would be on the bid here going into G20. My only disappointment was if Bullard had mentioned that, I thought we could have gone and done some stops above the 14.13. I thought that would have been provided excellent short from there as far as valuation. He kind of, as I said, took the air of the balloon. So now we're kind of stuck in the middle. And once again, like I said, we may hang here, but I think we're going to have to go in and work lower. At this point now, I'd be moving my bids down to, because if we break lower, I'd be moving my bids down to 13.28 to go on and start to step on in. So, but that's about it. That's what we have here. Thanks for joining us here on the FX Daily Wrap-Up, sponsored by ForexAnalytix. And you may want to go and consider going and joining. Not only we have the chat room, we have also the excellent analysis comes, but you have access to the different webinars, and they're actually recorded and actually produced or made available before to the public. But like I said, especially with the European crossover webinar, if you're a short-term trader or a scalper, like I said, we post those levels in, they come in. And, you know, at that time at 4 a.m. in the mornings when we do the webinar, but they're available an hour and a half via recording. If you want to see the recording, the bias chart's posted in the room a couple of times in the morning, but you can certainly watch that webinar. But obviously we've hit some key levels, which 96.34 in the cash dollar index. If you're scalping around on that, not very far here on the 13.37 on the euro. Same thing we mentioned about the gold, and I think that has the potential to go on and pare back potentially down to 13.90. After it hit, and I'm talking about via the XAU, the gold futures are trading at a premium of, I believe, about $3. But thanks for joining us here. Good luck with the rest of the day, and we will catch y'all tomorrow.